Going. Thank you. Thank you for, I'm calling the meeting to order. Matt, do you want to do a roll call vote? Or Pam?
Larson?
Here.
Silkworth?
Here.
Leaders?
Here.
Chapman?
Here.
Let the record show, Justin is absent tonight. He had a work trip come up.
Yeah. Have we all read the minutes from last meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, minutes have been approved. So we have one item on our agenda tonight that was tabled from September 18th. A public hearing is not required at this meeting. And I see the room full, which is unusual, and I appreciate all of the folks who are here with interest.
Point of order, this was advertised as a public hearing for comments from the public. You may appear at the public meeting in person or be represented to express your views concerning the above application. That was the notice that was printed in the newspaper.
Okay. Well, then, I don't know if you have a statement that you want me to read. I would say that given the number of people that are here and the fact that this issue will be in front of the Board of Supervisors.
Can we have Matt do his presentation first?
Would you like to do that before I open the public hearing?
Let's go ahead and open up the public hearing, and then we'll run through the presentation quick to where all we came to from last month's meeting to this month's meeting. And then if you'd like to open it up or have it go for public comment, then
Okay.
take the public
Would you
comment.
like me to read the statement or not?
Yes.
Thank you. It's a bit of a chore sometimes for me to read it, so if I was going to get away without it, I might have taken him up on it. These public hearings will be conducted pursuant to the Commissioner's Rules of Procedures. We will first hear the report of the Planning Director on the detailed information and observations regarding the request before the Commission, if not done so in written form prior to the hearing. Next, we will take the testimony of the applicant, of his and her witnesses. Upon completion of the applicant's testimony, I will call upon members of the audience wishing to be heard concerning their request. We will limit comments tonight to 3 minutes, so please be brief, not repetitive, and brevity and articulated clarity is much appreciated. Persons in favor of the request shall be heard first, followed by those opposed to it. At any time during the presentation of testimony, the members of the Commission may interrupt to ask questions or to make comments on what has been said. Upon completion of all testimony, the applicant will be allowed to make a closing statement to the Commission. Upon completion of the applicant's closing statement, I will entertain a motion from the Commission to close the public hearing on the request. The Commission reserves the right to ask questions of any member of the audience. However, we will not hear any unsolicited statements unless the public hearing is first opened. Each speaker addressing this Commission shall step forward to the podium, state your name and address before proceeding with their testimony or evidence. This Commission shall not be bound by strict rules of evidence, but does reserve the right to exclude evidence or testimony that it may deem to be irrelevant, immaterial, incompetent, or repetitious. As chairman, I will rule on all questions relating to the admissibility of evidence which may be overruled by a majority of the Commission. Continuances may be granted by the Commission in case for good cause shown to any interested party who has entered their appearance. The Commission may request a continuance of a hearing for the purpose of giving further notice. taking further evidence, gathering further information, touring the proposed site, or for such other reasons as the commission may find sufficient. In such case, we will state the specific reasons for the continuance and set a date, time, and place when the matter will be continued. All official actions of this commission will be made at a public meeting by motion made, seconded, and a polling of the membership. If conditions are imposed, such conditions shall be included in the motion or amendment thereto. Our final decision will be prepared in writing and will be part of the public record of this commission.
I'll make a motion to open public hearing for case number ZTA 2023-03.
Second. It's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. So, Matt, you want to tell
Yes.
us the good stuff?
So, thank you, and I do have Lee Greenwald here with me tonight. He works with Mr. Levy on this, and we've been coordinating back and forth between all the comments to get to this. So I thought tonight that one of the easiest ways to go through this would be to go through how we laid out in the ordinance, just kind of go point by point and go through, show the definitions, the section changes, the zoning districts involved, and what we have. So if you could go to the first slide. So we're looking at the Chapter 8 zoning ordinance, wind and solar changes that we would be doing with that. One of the first things that we always note in there at the beginning is just a general typo and grammar corrections. It can happen throughout the document. It allows us to go in there, do capitalization, grammar changes, punctuations. So that's a common line that's on our ordinances. The next part of it is to repeal the definition of board relating to the Board of Adjustment, and we're going to replace that definition with labeling it as Adjustment Board, the Board of Adjustment on there, and then amend by replacing all references with board to the Adjustment Board, and amend all references to the Board of Supervisors with the County Board. The Board of Supervisors is defined out in the zoning ordinance as County Board. And so it's just going to add clarity throughout the document as you're reading down through to say, are we talking about the Board of Adjustment? Or are we talking about the Board of Supervisors? And then, of course, we have the Planning Commission as well. So, next slide, Pam. This is, again, sticking with our definitions. We're adding in a definition of a concentrated solar energy system, non-participating landowner, participating landowner, and solar energy systems, commercial, which would be known as CSES. Next slide. Solar energy systems, non-commercial. We're going to repeal the definition of a wind turbine generator, commercial and non-commercial, and we're replacing that with definitions for wind turbine generator, commercial and non-commercial WTG. We're also going to repeal the definition of wind farm commercial, and we're going to replace that with the definition of wind energy system commercial, CWES. Go ahead, Pam. We will repeal the definition for wind farm non-commercial, replace it with the definition for wind energy system non-commercial. Add a definition of a wind turbine generator. We're going to be repealing the subsection reserved, and that's where for that. So for 8.040.12.210 reserved, that is where we're fitting in our solar energy system on there. So section 210 of that will now be the solar energy systems. Section 230, wind turbine generator, we're going to replace that with wind energy systems commercial. 240 is your non-commercial wind energy systems. Then we're going to be adding that section 0.18, solar energy systems non-commercial. Go ahead, Pam. So section 18, wind energy systems commercial, subject to the provisions except in the A4, R1, R2, and R3 districts. Deleting the sections on there for the wind farms with commercial and non-commercial. We're going to add in the sections, though. We're going back to those definitions on the wind energy systems commercial. And this, it does get a little bit repetitive in here, but just stick with me because at the end, we circle it back around to talk some more about on these, but I wanted to make sure that we pointed out, you know, these are, so we're going from one section that's affected to the other sections of it. And then wind energy systems, subject to the 230 again. Go ahead, Pam. I'm going to add that section 0.12, solar energy sections, commercial, subject to the requirements of the 210. We're going to repeal the section 17, wind farms, non-commercial. We're replacing that with sections 0.17, wind energy systems, non-commercial. Subject to, again, it's non-commercial, so it's subject to 240. We're going to repeal the 1.2, wind farms, non-commercial. Replacing it with our new wind energy systems, non-commercial, subject to the 240. Get into the adding sections 1.3 of the solar energy systems, commercial, subject to 210. Repealing 11, the wind farms, non-commercial. We're going to replace that same section number, wind farms, still non-commercial. And since non-commercial, it's 240. Go ahead, Pam. Again, these are more sections that are affected by the changes that we're going to make on each one of those. You can go. There's a couple of these because obviously you go down through the zoning districts, it affects them differently, but we make sure that we navigate through those. Next slide, Pam. One more. Okay. So this is again the solar energy systems. I think I bolded the important part of this in the conditional uses is that the CSESs shall require a conditional use permit in A2, A3, R1, C1, C2, C3, I1, I2 districts. So they do have to go before you're fine, it's okay. You do have, they would, even if they came in and applied for a commercial solar farm, they're gonna have to go to the adjustment board for that conditional use permit in order to be able to be granted their building permit to move forward on those. So, this gets into the wind section of it, the conditional use permits within the A2 and the A3 zoning districts. So we're talking about commercial wind farm in the A2 and the A3 districts. The A2 is your agricultural preservation, your A3 is your riverfront, river bottom areas, low-lying lands section of it. It's conditional, they have to come get a conditional use permit for those before they would be granted building permit on those. We had a really good discussions back and forth about the setbacks on what these would be, and so we made sure that, you know, originally we were talking about 3 times the height of the tower to. It was originally listed out as occupied, non-participating dwelling, occupied, participating dwelling. We dropped the occupied off of there, and it is just now it is a dwelling on there. So, but it's a minimum of 1,500 feet. The property owners would have a right to sign a waiver allowing them to reduce that setback distance, but they at no point would they be allowed to be, you know, 1 1/10 times higher to any dwelling on there. Because we had such a good discussion around dwellings last time, I wanted to make sure that we made note that we already do have dwellings defined out in Chapter 8 of the zoning ordinance, and this is that definition of that. You can go ahead. So there we go. So that kind of was the highlights of our discussions that we had in there last week. Is there any, did I seem to capture, for those of you who are here, did we seem to capture those points that were noted on there?
I think so.
Anything from the Board of Supervisors members? Did we capture those points that we were shooting for?
I'm still not satisfied with the setbacks. I'd like to hear what the public has to say.
So,
Any other questions of Matt before we start listening to folks who have come? Okay, so we're going to do proponents first. Are there proponents in the room that want to speak tonight? I would remind everyone that there will be a public hearing in front of the Board of Supervisors as well when this item goes forward. And this commission is an advisory commission only. So it's our recommendation that moves forward to the board. The board's supervisor's decision is binding, but ours is a recommendation to the board. So
And then also, Matt, right, like you just said, before somebody can put in a structure, it has to go before the Board of Adjustments, right?
If these changes.
So I mean, right now, we're just changing our code is what we're doing. And then when somebody actually wants to do a unit, whatever you want to call it, then it has to go in front of the Board of Adjustments, correct?
If these changes go through,
Okay.
that will then be the policy, that will then be how it's operated currently right now, and not all of the zoning districts is a conditional use. So if it stays the way it is now, no, not in every zoning district do they have to go get a conditional use.
They can just do it.
They could potentially just do it in those zoning districts, but if this goes through, then regardless of in the zoning districts that it is allowable in, especially if we just look at the wind farm portion of it, in the
Right.
A2 and in the A3, they would have to go get a conditional use permit, but they would not have to now.
Okay.
But we have guidelines, that's what we're implementing to go forward to the County Board of Supervisors, whereas we do not have those in place today. So you could,
It is we have guidelines in place today, this is just a more restrictive.
more restrict.
So, I'm a proponent, but I have a question. So should I come up and ask a question?
Sure.
Yes,
Please.
Yeah.
Name
Name and address, and as I indicated, let's limit your time to 3 minutes.
Sure. So I'm Julie Drennan, St. Paul, Minnesota. Do you want my actual address?
Sure.
Okay. 1043 Como Place, St. Paul, Minnesota, 55103. So at the last session where this was discussed, we also talked about a new measurement procedure for sound, and then we talked about decommissioning as well. So I don't know if we're specifically addressing only setbacks in this hearing, or if we plan to talk about or enact changes for those.
I think
We
we
did.
can talk about any of it, actually.
So your question about the sound, yes,
Well, specifically, we had talked about, and we have a sound expert in the room today, which is why I bring this up, so that if it is up for discussion, we would have we'd be prepared to answer questions. But it was less about the decibels and more about the place of measurement for sound.
that is correct. And setbacks.
Yeah, so the other one was the collection line cable, the depth for that too. So I don't know if you were just doing the highlights, but just wanna make sure.
Thank you.
Yes, so on the sound, we added in that part of at least 25 feet from the closest exterior wall of a not participating dwelling shall not exceed the 50 decibels, a weighted LEG 1 hour. And then
It
we
should be a
added,
Q, actually, not a.
yeah,
Okay.
LEQ, apologies, reading through here, so.
Okay. I mean, we talked about setbacks when you opened this, so I just wanna make sure that, that was part of it too. And thank you. I don't have anything else to add.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else with information or comments as a proponent? Okay, then we'll open it up for others to speak. And
Just go row by row.
row by row,
Meaning like, yeah, if you want to do that, just whoever's, raise a hand and.
or raise a hand if you want to address the commission. Woman in white. She's the first brave one.
I want to say good morning, but it's evening, so good evening. My name is Charity Dewey. I live at 29085 Applewood Road, Silver City, Iowa. So I've got my Cliff Notes version of your ordinance here. So a couple things I want to point out. Trespass zoning, something that a lot of people haven't heard about, but it is where you place something so close to somebody else's property line that parts of their property become unusable for their own purposes. So when you're talking about setbacks to the corner of somebody's house, you're essentially saying that part of their property rights are invalid. That's something that should be addressed in this ordinance. It should not be to the corner of someone's home, whether or not they can use their land. It should be to their corner of their property. So several counties in the state of Iowa have enacted wind turbine ordinances that have setbacks, since we're just mainly talking about setbacks tonight, of anywhere from a half a mile to a mile and a half. Madison County put one in 2 years ago that is a mile and a half. It was written by their Board of Health. And they also capped the total height of the wind turbines in their county, as well as the total number of wind turbines allowed in their county. Where Sioux County, Woodbury County, they have a half a mile setback. It's something that I think is a little bit more usable, but fair on both sides. So if you put in a half a mile setback, not 1,500 feet, more people I think would be open to being accepting of having wind energy expanded in Pot County. So if we're looking at reasons for why we would want a half a mile, fire safety within a half a mile, electrical problems and disturbances with the wind turbines, even ice shedding. Ice shedding is known to be thrown 1,500 feet from a wind turbine. Any other kind of debris, you've got a blade that's moving almost 200 miles an hour, and it's going to throw things 2,600 feet away. That means if my 4 kids are outside playing in my yard, we're going to have a problem. So that's why we say half a mile from the property line, not from the corner of my house, because it shouldn't matter where the houses sit on the property line as to whether or not my kids can go out and play at their play set. When we're looking at that, some of this information, it comes from the Department of Mechanical Engineering with the University of Pacific in Stockton, California, in conjunction with the National Wind Technology Center, which is the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in Golden, Colorado. That's where I'm getting this information. I have a confidential source from our community who works on wind turbines, and he said 1 mile. 1 mile is considered safe in the industry. And you guys want to say 1,500 feet from the corner of a house, that's not where the community feels that is safe. And I know that because most of them are here to say the same thing. So that's basically what I want to say tonight when it comes to setbacks.
So you're proposing what?
1/2 mile, not a mile and a half, but 1/2 mile from the closest corner.
So half a mile.
Half a mile to the center of the wind turbine. So if the wind turbine company says that makes it not viable for their project, that's on them. Shouldn't be on the people that live in the county. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, anybody?
That's my timer.
Please come forward.
Greg Soloth, 22732 310th Street, McClelland, Iowa. My question was more about, David Levy is who you're working with for the zoning changes on this.
Bear home, yes.
There no.
Do they also represent wind and energy companies? I would almost think it's a conflict of interest to have somebody that represents them drawing up our zoning. I think you need somebody with more of an independent attitude about these things. And, it looks like I've done a little research, looks like he's pro wind energy, solar energy. I don't see why he would be doing us any favors drawing up our county zoning laws. I'd say it's a direct conflict of interest myself, so.
And just to let everybody know, Beard Home, when I reached out, we were recommended to them by Mills County, and when I reached out to them, they did very well disclose. They said, listen, we work on both sides of the issue. We work for companies that develop these energy products, and we also work for municipalities on them. And that was talked about when we signed on with them at the Board of Supervisors.
Okay. I've seen where he's been at conferences, promoting wind energy, solar energy. I would like somebody with more independent ideas on it than let them come up with our zoning ideas and changes. Thank you.
If I could add to that, when the county board was looking at writing these ordinances, we were also looking at the price tag that was attached to it. And we felt we would get the best bang for our buck if we used somebody who had written an ordinance recently that was close to Pottawattamie County, so that we wouldn't have to pay for the learning curve. We would have consistent ordinances between adjoining counties. So that was the reason why we
Okay,
went
but
with
I think it's a conflict of interest. I'd rather have somebody that more has the best interest of the county and its landowners and just people that live here than somebody that might have more interest in what is good for the wind energy company or the solar energy company.
Understood.
I think it's a conflict, I really do. And that's my point.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to address the commission? You're on.
Stephen Buckingham, Carson, Iowa, 42869 Chestnut Road, East Pod. Just a couple things since we started here. The first thing was you weren't planning on a public hearing. Sounded to me like it's already been passed through the supervisors to go on with this. No?
No?
No. We had a public hearing on this, I don't know what the
A
date
month
was
ago.
Last month.
exactly, but we did have, and it was advertised as a public hearing then, so.
Okay. I see all this is changing from the wind farms to wind energy systems, trying to fool people. They're used to hearing wind farms, they don't want them. You're changing every part of that to wind energy systems, and they won't have any idea what that's talking about. If they think wind energy is okay, that's fine, but if they'd have heard wind farms, I believe they would have probably not thought as much about changing their minds. I'm real interested in what is changing on the non-commercial, because I actually own 2 wind generators. I had to pay for them myself, and they do go through REC because Mid-America is ridiculous on doing anything with them. They don't want the private person to have them, so they've made their contracts so unbelievably expensive, and very few people can own them. Everybody that is north of me that has signed up with these companies are the land owners. Not a one of them farms it. Not a one of them has any idea what is all going on to put one on their ground. They just see the money. I don't believe the money should be the point of it. The farmer does not want it, but the landowner just sees the money, and that's a big problem right there. I don't have a lot other to say, other than I don't like the way they're changing the name, because it's gonna fool too many people. It's trying to do that. So, as far as safety wise, they're killing the animals. And as far as the rest of my family, they just want it to all go away. They don't want nothing to do with it, along with a lot of the farmers in our area. Because they don't like all the safety problems that they're having. They don't like the geese, the ducks migrating to different areas instead, because they do push them out of the migration.
What kind of safety issues are they having?
With,
I don't know, you said there's all kinds of safety issues.
on animals and cattle, stuff like that.
Can you be
They're
more
out.
specific?
The ice
Ice?
that gets thrown into
Okay.
the areas. There's been animals killed because of it. It's also when they are going and the eagles come around. We've finally got eagles for the first time in 10 years, in the last 3 years. And they'll all go away again, I'm sure. So it's just, they want it right through that Avoca, down through the wind alley. And they're going after everybody on that East Pot side. And West Pot don't care. And I'm looking at that name change as changing too many people's minds because they're fooling them. They're trying to do that. Every place that says wind farm, wind energy systems. That's not right. Tell it like it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to address the commission? Please come forward.
This is not, it's only for, there's no proponents, we missed our chance. Okay.
James Snore from 10750 290th Street, Silver City, Iowa. And a little bit repetitious, the gentleman that spoke about the conflict of interest. And then regarding Susan's comment, I talked to a supervisor from Mills County on the way in here today, Carol Vinton. And you can call her and confirm this, I guess. I don't like to make stuff up because you get in trouble doing that. But she said they have consulted with the Bear, whatever the name is, he said, Bear Home, and they have used none of their recommendations, and they've got another firm now they're using. I can't even pronounce it, but call Carol and she'll tell you who it is, but it's another group they're using now. And that was one point of interest, I thought. But I don't know. And, you know, it was brought to my attention, I'm not going to say by who, but they said, well, that's who Mills County used. And I don't know, in my life of doing business, just because somebody else is doing something doesn't mean that's what you want to do. And it might be right and it might not, but you better check it out and see if that's really who you want working for you. And might be a great outfit, and maybe they're doing the best that can be done. But, and then, I guess being repetitious, I'm gonna be a little repetitious with what Charity said. I think you guys are zoning my property. When you let behind my house, the guys signed up back there already, the property line behind my house. When you let him put up a wind generator, just the height of it away from the property line, you're zoning my property too. And I can't build a house back there. I mean, who would want to? But you've ruined, I don't know, my farm. And it's not a hobby farm either. It's 800 acres. So it's I don't know. You're just letting them come in and right up to the property line. If there's not a house there, well, there's more to owning property than the house. You know, and do I feel safe driving down a roadway where the county's allowed them to put these wind generators right up by the property line by the roadway? I don't know. I don't know if I feel safe with stuff flying off of those in the wintertime driving down the road with my truck or car. I don't know. Something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Lauren Luth. I live 5.5 miles west of Hancock, right in the area that's being discussed right now. And I think we're being concerned over.
Can you give your specific address, please?
Surely, 37622 Mahogany Road, Hancock.
Thank you.
I don't want to get lost in details. The bigger picture here is that do you want wind energy? If you want wind energy, That means that every kilowatt that the generators can produce affects how much imported oil and energy that we have to buy. And the less we have to buy from the world, the Middle East, Russia, wherever this is going on right now, anything that we can do to produce energy now is of great benefit, not only us, but to the country. And if you're concerned about what your children's safety is, how do you feel about the big pile of waste ash south of Council Bluffs full of heavy metals? What's going to be done about that? Okay, they can hear me. They can hear me fine. So that's really all I have to say. I'd like to have put in a positive word for the whole proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Annika Olson. My address is 32760 Beech Nut Road. I just kind of want to not be too repetitive, but I live on a legacy farm, third generation. I live out there, moved out there with my 2 small children. And to that point, I want them to be able to play in the yard. So we have enough room, but if you put only 1,500 feet in setback, I would have to worry about them playing in our yard as well, with any sort of debris coming off of them or whatever. My other point is, it's not like a registered lobbyist for a wind and solar will write an ordinance recommendation that benefits anyone but renewables. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Gary Forstall, 12173 350th Street, Macedonia. There's a couple of issues I don't think have been addressed. One is Council Bluffs Airport is the largest pilot training area in the Midwest. And the training, there's a lot of low-level maneuvers around points, emergency procedures. Wind farms would eliminate all this pilot training. It's not feasible to do pilot training above 2,000 feet. The other issue is, I've studied a lot of the effects of these 200-foot wind turbines and the sound, the light, the flashing lights. I have not seen any on the 600-foot ones. I've talked to some friends who live near the 600-foot ones. The flashing lights at night from turbines 15 to 20 miles away, they said that looks like there's flashlights shining in your window. That would mean that almost all the eastern suburbs in Council Bluffs would be affected by these. I don't know if that's been addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll go last. Is anybody else?
So there's been some safety questions that might need clarity. So I don't know if this is just not a time to respond or clarify.
It's up to you. You're the boss.
Yeah, I would like to hear those safety clarity issues, points.
So again, Julie Drennan, 1043 Como Place, St. Paul, Minnesota. So I am with RWE, and we are developing a wind farm here. One of the things I heard a lot so far is about the ice throw. So wind turbines today do have ice detection systems on them that stop the blades when it is determined the ice is building up. So they have that. There are some turbines that have cold weather packages. There's some heating equipment in there. But generally, it is recognized that in the Midwest, there needs to be measures taken to address ice buildup and ice throw. So then what you do is you just ensure that the perimeter, the conditions are ready or prime for ice buildup is you would just secure around that blade radius or diameter, that, or just a circle around it, that ice would just fall off the blade. So it's on the signed landowner's property. There should be no ice throw that goes far. So that is something that the technology has advanced in, especially as you're seeing the longer blades. It's something industry cares about and has addressed. So there should not be things flinging off of the blades causing a safety concern.
I have a question just for the ones that are opposed to it. So is there a system in place on these for these ice detection, weather detection that says, oh, it's not working? Or does somebody physically go make sure that these systems are in place and working correctly when there is bad weather or ice? Or is it just not, you know what I mean?
So I'm not sure I totally understand your question. I will say there's on-site an O&M team that would know.
So there's somebody physically making sure that all the safety systems are good, they're in check, they're working, everything's proper and.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and as part of that fault detection, what they'll notice in the rotation of the blades is the weight difference. So it will affect the efficiency of rotation. So when there's ice buildup, say conditions were not acknowledged or temperature conditions were not acknowledged and that was missed and the turbine blades were not stopped, there would be a weight discrepancy and that would affect the output of the turbine. And so the O&M team would examine it at that time.
What's your allowable range, right? So if your blade normally spins at 60 pounds, is it 61, 62?
This is beyond my level of knowledge. Yes, so that would be a great question for operations staff, which, I mean, we could have them respond to that, but that one I don't know. I don't know the specifics.
Could you ask them that, and then is it like I guess I'm curious, I'm just a little curious, is it a 30-day check? Is it 90 days and 6 months?
So it should be, the minute a problem is discovered, it's immediate. So it's not like you're just waiting and then checking at a certain interval. It's you're constantly monitoring the output and weather conditions.
Yeah, like the 60, I get that part of it, where like the 62, like these are just whatever, 62 throws off the trigger. Say, hey, you need to come check me. What I'm wondering is like your overall maintenance of the system, then is it like every 30 days somebody's going out there and making sure all the lights are green for that systems?
That I would also have to get back to you. I mean, generally speaking, when things aren't working, they'll know when they fix it. So it's more of a immediate fix kind of thing. It's rare for problems to go undetected. It's usually they're going to know because it affects the power output. So, but I don't know what the regular schedule is in addition to that. But yeah, so there's a lot of systems in there that check performance. So that's the main debris I want to address. I don't know if there's other concerns in here about, any other kind of, I just heard debris mentioned generally, but with ice throw, that is something that in cold weather climates, the industry has worked to address.
Does every modern turbine have this cold energy protection?
No, no, that is something that the developer would select based on the conditions in the area.
Thank you.
Trying to think, so somebody had brought up eagles or something like that. Is there any information on, is there a way, I guess I don't really know how to ask that, but I mean, is doing anything to protect birds from these things, or? Yeah,
in wind farm layout, when you develop the wind farm, we look at federally protected species, and then we consult with the local DNR. And we would do a series of monitoring tests. We would do studies on eagles. There would be eagle spotting, where we'd have folks out there to look for nests and just flyovers. And then we would have also helicopters out to look. So there are requirements, and I'd have to look at what those are, because sometimes there can be a mismatch between state and federal. But
so those are federal requirements then?
For eagles, yes.
Okay.
Eagles. Federal requirement. If you spot an active nest, there's a certain distance we have to site the turbine away from that nest. So, those requirements will tell us, where we have to put the turbine. And then what we do for you is we supply you with our application that has all of the studies that we've done. So you could do due diligence to say, okay, this migratory path was identified or this nest was identified. Does their layout respond to that? So, and that does go for other species too. So anything that is a species of concern that's identified for the area, that we would have a setback that is either federally or state determined.
Okay. That's something, Matt, is that something that would have to be in the plan when they come before the Board of Adjustments?
As part of their conditional use, yes.
Yes, so that, yeah, that's in the package. There was a concern about fire with regard to setbacks too. Generally, fires are extremely rare for wind turbines. They typically happen if it's a plastic component that burns, or in the rare chance that there's lightning that can happen, a lightning strike. And the fire's most often contained in the tower. So the emergency protocol is just to let it burn out, and then we disassemble the turbine and repair it. So usually what happens then is similar to ice throw, you just secure a perimeter around that turbine, and that would be, it could be as far as the fall distance of the turbine, but there should be no need to secure beyond that distance. Usually it's a 500-foot perimeter. Okay,
Thank you.
that's all for me. Thanks.
Got a concern about
You want to have them come back up, or?
Yeah. Lock them back up.
Would you like to address this one more time? You're limited to a minute and a half this time.
That's fine.
Since
I'm
it's your
sitting there
second.
listening to her, and she doesn't actually know, I don't think, what winter is like in Pottawattamie County on some days. But there is people up by Walnut on these wind turbines up there. Half a mile away, they've had to re-side their house and re-roof them. They've had holes in their roof. There's no guarantee they won't build up ice, just like if you drive on gravel and then you have a rain and all the outside of the wheel gets washed off, but all that dirt on the inside now, your wheels are clear out of balance. They don't have time to shut down. It's throwing stuff. So, I mean, it is a safety hazard.
So has this been brought up to the county and reported?
Well, the people up there, their insurance has had it. I'm just saying, they report it to their insurance.
Well, typically, if common sense, you'd report it to the county because that's a county issue.
Yeah.
Not just insurance. So is that a fact or just?
No, it's a fact if you go up there and talk to the people.
Have you heard anything on this, Matt?
I have.
Probably not. Like
So
I
they should have,
said,
they
turned
should
it
have
in.
done their due diligence and reported to the county to help
Farmers
everybody
talk
out in the
to
county.
Farmers and their insurance talks to them. As far as going back on the company, they've complained, and
Dude, the turbines, you said you own 2 turbines yourself?
I actually own them, and it does throw ice.
Just-
And it's got brand new, state-of-the-art, new blades on them.
Are they large turbines? Or
No, they're just little 10,000s, only 45 feet in the air, 3 blades. I mean, it's just a
But
normal
you
turbine.
get the ice throw off of it?
Oh, I get
Those
ice throw
things,
off, and I've got birds dead underneath them, but, yeah, if they're doing fly-arounds, of course, they're not gonna see any eagles. I mean, you do regular fly-arounds, those eagles are gonna leave. And you got migratory birds, yeah, you won't see them, not if you're flying.
So you have the turbine, the wind turbine thing yourself?
Yes, I have one.
So
I've had it for over.
why do you
about
have it
20
if
years.
it's so negative? That's my question.
Why
are you
am I
using
so
it?
negative?
I mean, no, meaning it's causing environmental issues, like you said. You got dead birds on your property. It throws.
Mine are
Why do
more
you use it if it's such
sparrows.
bad?
My problem was during the summer,
Huh?
swimming pools, everything else going on in my house. I had $1,000 electric bills.
Right.
Okay.
Well, why not solar?
I want solar.
But why? But you're saying that this is what.
I
Just hear me
think
out. Hear me
so-
out. You're
yeah.
so negative on the wind side, but you use wind. But why are you still using wind if it's such negative? It's kind of like,
Mine
you're
isn't
negative, but you're
danger.
using it. It's
Yeah.
like you're robbing a bank, but you're not robbing a
And I
bank.
understand. I wanna know why it's just like all the farms that have windmills.
Right.
I mean, we're not high enough to generate a problem up in there where they're soaring and things like that.
But you get dead birds. The windmills
I got
cause dead birds.
sparrows. They're stupid. I mean, they're flying through it.
Okay.
He's got a
But
smaller-
blackbirds,
He's got a smaller, yeah, okay.
yeah, I'm not talking about the big ones.
But you're still killing an animal.
I've still got.
But you're
that.
still killing animals.
I'm not killing the cows.
Okay.
Okay? I'm just saying though that a big safety thing on them is 3 years, they start tearing them apart and they get dumped. And then they're left with big pads of cement.
Sure.
That you can't even break up with a point of a,
That's all addressed in the
yes,
ordinance.
okay. But I'm just saying that is another safety thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm gonna take another minute and a half real quick. So what Mr. Buckingham was just saying is he has a personal wind turbine. He does not have an industrial wind turbine that can be up to 624 feet tall with a 480-foot wingspan. That's completely different, and so the snark was, I think, very inappropriate. But
Snark, what does that mean?
the snark?
Yeah.
Towards him, why would you
Well,
be
that wasn't a
against it if you
snark,
had-
that was, if you
It
have
sounded
something.
very snarky.
No, it wasn't.
So either way, when we were talking about eagles, so they brought up the eagles. So Mid-American Energy was granted a 20-year incidental take for any kind of raptors with any of their wind farms across Iowa. And in that, they had to put in a stipulation in their contract. And in that contract, it now places the burden on the landowner. The landowner is now required, if they sign that contract, to then go over their property every day looking for dead carcasses. And it even goes on to tell them how to dispose of them every day. Now, the majority of people signing up for wind turbines, they don't have 10 acres or 20 acres. They can have 1,600 acres. You cannot tell me that they're going over that property every day looking for dead carcasses to dispose of. Now, so I get what, you know, when we're talking about like how they mitigate that in the area. I had a personal conversation with Stantec. Stantec is the environmental research company that was hired by Mid-American last year. And when we were talking to the biologist that was out there, I said, well, have you been over here to see the swans at this pond? Nope, can't go over there. Well, how about I take you over to this conservancy land that's under conservancy, and I can show you where the bald eagles' nests are? Nope, not allowed to go over there. We're given 15 minutes and we're told where we can go and when we can go there. So I would question any environmental impact survey that comes in from them if the people in the can say, no, we have a bald eagle's nest right over here. If you're telling me that there's not them within those waterways, near lakes, ponds, any of those estuaries, they're probably full of it. So that's where a lot of people started to raise the red flag going, what is going on if you're telling me that you cannot go and observe when you have nesting creatures that live here? Because that's not going to be written on their report. So that was that. As far as the fire safety, 500 feet is BS. It's a half a mile for any responding rural fire department. And I
So
can
by the
send
way,
that
that was not a
information.
snark, I was in
too.
favor of you, but now I'm reconsidering my stuff.
Well-
Because here's the thing, if you're gonna kill an animal, doesn't matter if it's big or small.
Well,
If you're still
understood.
killing an animal, so that was not a snark.
Well, it just sounded
That
really-
was not a snark, and I
Okay.
was in favor of you, but now I'm reconsidering my thing because you said it was a snark.
Okay, well, I know that I'm not everybody's.
That's it, I'm just letting you know.
And that's fine.
I'm a straight shooter on this one here.
And so am I. So that's why I called it, because that's probably what it sounded like to everybody else.
No, if you're killing an
So-
animal, big or small, doesn't
I
matter.
get it. So
So
then
that
we
wasn't
should
a snark.
probably
That
go
was
ahead
just-
and limit the solar too, because, you know, these.
But here's the thing, I don't make this up,
I don't
we're
either.
not paid here. The people that you need to talk to are sitting right there in the front row.
I understand.
So
But
that is
You
it.
guys get to
So
give
I'll
a
work-
recommendation, which is why we're here today.
And our recommendation can say yes or no, and it can still go to the board,
Correct.
but the final say is the board.
I understand.
That's those people right there. So I'm not a snark.
Okay,
Do you see that?
I do. And I will agree with you on that.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, Susan, come give us your remarks.
Well, I just want to start by thanking all of you, because I do realize that you've done the heavy lifting for this, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate what Pam and Matt have put together, and listened to my edits and my comments along the way, and they've been very respectful of those. I also want to thank everybody that came tonight, because I know several of you shut down your combines and you left the field so that you could come and speak tonight, and I appreciate that. We all hear you. We hear what you're saying. We want to get this right. We've got an existing wind ordinance that was written many years ago, and now is the time to update it, incorporate the things that we're hearing, and make it better, because we've got one chance and we want to get it right. So I think this is good timing for this. We do not have any solar ordinance today. So I believe, I don't hear any comments about the solar, so I'm believing we're on track with it. So that's a positive. I do really want us to consider, when we do the zoning, to not allow the commercial wind farms in zone A3, which is zoned as the waterways and the rivers, because I believe in protecting the migratory bird patterns as well, and we know they change from time to time. But I think if we limit the commercial zones or wind turbines to the A2 zones, I think we can work with that by adding the additional setback from the property lines and working with the mile, or at least the half mile, what I was hearing. The ordinance that we've updated also includes responsibility for road recovery. And that was a piece that was missing when we drafted the first ordinance. So we've added that piece. We've added financial surety, so that for the decommissioning, we're gonna require bonding by the energy systems companies, so that when those turbines are no longer needed, we've got funding to remove them, or the energy company has funding to remove them, so we're not gonna be stuck with them forever. I just know we've come a long ways. We've looked at this a long time. I do know that I like what Madison County has done as far as setbacks, and I think that we can take the recommendations from the Planning and Zoning Board and look at it again from the Board of Supervisors standpoint, and we can come up with something that will be satisfactory to all parties concerned. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Oh,
Excuse me, I don't know if now is the right time, but I think it might be appropriate for me to briefly address the conflict of interest allegations. I don't know if you'd like me to do that now or.
You want to come on up,
Sure.
please?
Public hearing.
yeah.
So again, Lee Greenwald with Baird Holm Law Firm, obviously working closely with the county to develop these regulations.
Can you give your address, please?
I sure can. 1700 Farnham Street, Suite 1500, Omaha, Nebraska, 68102.
Thank you.
And so I just want to point out, number one, clearly the county is our client. And when you hire legal representation in any industry, you're likely hiring an attorney who has been on all sides of the issue, and that's part of the value that you receive. I want to point out that the county has been the keeper of the document as far as these regulations, has made most of the changes on its own, consulted with us when there were legal questions. And we do not write these regulations, we respond and implement the wishes of this body as approved by your Board of Supervisors. And so any allegation otherwise is simply untrue. We've done this in neighboring counties as well. They have adopted the regulations with their own input that we've set forth. And I guess to the extent of the gentleman's point that they rejected any of our suggestions, it just goes to show that the process is working and the counties themselves decide what's in the regulations. With that, I would submit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Close the public hearing and discussions, right?
Right.
motion.
Motion to
Motion.
close a public hearing?
Second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Thank you. The public hearing has been closed. Discussion from
I have a
commissioners?
question. So like, taking their recommendations, the half-mile setback, so currently it's what, 1,500?
1,500.
So if we want to improve those, what's the process? Do we do a continuance? Or
No, we
approve it as is,
No,
or
we
add
can-
these to this and then move it on to
Approve
the
with that
That's up to us, whatever we recommend and.
I make a
put forward
recommendation,
to-
a minimum of a half mile on one item. That's my.
I'm not opposed to that. I think, I'm I know somebody had mentioned from the property line, and I'm kind of in favor of that, using the property
Yeah.
line,
Yeah.
maybe not doing a half mile, but use the property line and doing 1,500 feet.
Because the setbacks in the county are 15 feet to build a building,
No,
isn't it?
no.
It
25
varies
feet?
depending upon zone.
You
Okay.
have front yard setbacks, side yard, rear yard.
Right,
all
they're all
different, right?
So
different.
your front,
And it-
the majority of your districts, I would say your front yard setback from your property line is 75 feet.
Correct.
So what do you think?
Well, I don't know, I mean, the one gentleman talked about, he's got a, 1,600 acre farm, and I agree somewhat that, yeah, if you allow this, that's kind of putting zoning on his property, so, the dwelling makes sense,
So doing it from the property line?
but, if you own that property, you don't have a dwelling there now, and you wanna build a cabin in the corner of your property, all of a sudden changes things, so.
So half mile from the property line?
Yeah, I think
I would be more, for 1,500 foot from the property line, rather than a dwelling.
Because the consensus, it sounded like it's a half mile, everybody
Yeah.
here.
I can see
well,
both
a half
sides.
mile from a dwelling unit maybe makes some sense. And perhaps it can be both. I don't know what kind of impact that has on usable land. I agree with the gentleman that came up and said that every kilowatt of energy that we generate in a green way is a good thing for us. And solar energy and wind energy needs to be promoted and used. And my understanding of some of the changes we're making here in this ordinance are protecting pieces that are not protected today in some
Right.
respect. And I think it's vitally critical to not only our nation's sovereignty, but also our environment. Our climate is warming, and I think this is a very important issue, and we need to move forward. I tend to agree with the property line issue as well, though. I think that the setback should recognize the property line, and whether that's 1,500 from the property line, or it's a half mile from a dwelling, perhaps they're both. That's kind of where my head is.
That's where I'm at. I guess, we get it decided here and then we send it on, and I wish we had a little bit more, I know we've had time, but I hadn't thought about that issue so much. I hate to delay this anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe we can, give our recommendation to the Board of Supervisors and we can go,
Either or, can we say
well, I'm trying to think.
2 options or 1 option? Matt?
And then, I hate to put it all on them, but
They already have an
I-
issue with
I-
the setbacks.
I think the biggest issue of safety comes down to ice and recognizing that there is technology that can help solve the ice throwing problem. Whether we require that technology to be included in the turbines that get built is probably a reasonable ask of.
is there
of
anything
that
in there
kind.
about that, Matt?
The ice piece
The
of it?
safety piece of
The
it?
safety piece of it?
And I don't really know how data
Yeah,
on,
facts on it, I suppose.
yeah. Well, and I tend to agree that, you know, really tall turbines probably don't have as much research as 200-foot turbines.
Right.
You had
And we don't
something
have
to
anything,
offer
there's
there.
nothing in there that limits the height, is that, if I remember correctly, right? So we don't have a height limit, it was just the distance.
Yeah, you're correct on that part of it.
I was just gonna point out, right now in your setback section, you have both. So you have a property line setback and you also have a dwelling setback, which is common. And I would also, to answer your question, the methodology you have to avoid the impact of ice throw in your current regulations or in this current draft is the setback. And so, you know, you may be interested in more information about how far ice throw can be. Obviously, there's been some competing information here today, but I would propose that your current setback is going to be more than sufficient for that. But of course, you can adjust however you see fit.
Yeah,
But did want to point out you have both in there.
Thank you. I guess the question is the height 1.1 times the height of the wind turbine as a setback from a property line, a realistic distance for safety and or appearance? I mean, they're looming dinosaurs. They're the wind.
1.1.
What's that?
It wouldn't be very far though, would it?
Yeah.
It isn't very far,
No.
right?
But
That's what I
Madison
was.
No,
County,
that's-
they have that more restrictive.
That's why we were looking at the 1,500, I believe, correct? But that was from dwelling, but.
Currently, we're at 1,000, so everything that's going on, we're definitely moving towards a more restrictive ordinance that we have here. And I think I brought that up on the first meeting of it, was the fact on those setback thing is, do we really want to look at the dwelling, or do we want to look at the property line setback? Because it's becoming more and more common where people are, you know, even though when that tower goes up, you know, I mean, it has to be set back far enough from that property line that it's not gonna fall into another person's property, but there's still those risks associated with, you know, the ice throws. No matter how good your computerized system is, there's going to be something that comes along with that. But when you look back at so this goes back 20 years probably, the cell tower piece of
Yeah,
this, right?
yeah.
Everybody in the community, I mean, they had, I think Mr. Wickman was involved in one on the zoning board of adjustment where he went out and there, you know, they were out there picketing the cell phone towers in that area. And it was a lot about, well, the wind comes up and they can fall, and there's engineered fall distances on them now. So most of them have crumple zones. They're just gonna crumple with, it may be a 300-foot tower, but it's gonna fall within a 100-foot radius of what it is. So there are those parts, but a property line setback is, I think that's the way, my point is what I was getting to on that was, you know, on the towers, I mean, it was property line setback, it wasn't from dwelling.
Right.
So let's say that we propose and we submit it, can the county board of supervisors alter that?
Yes,
And make-
Yes.
absolutely.
Because they already know it sounds like they want to
It's
change
just
it
a
anyway, so I don't
recommendation
think
from
our,
us, so-
our recommendation's gonna match what they want, because Susan already said it. Right? You said that you had a discrepancy with the setbacks.
Well, but depending on what you came up with tonight.
Well, the way it's
No.
written, you have a discrepancy with, so basically you have to get something better than that.
Well, I would be in favor of using the property line, using 1,500 feet, and then maybe a half mile from a dwelling. How about that?
Okay.
That would be my.
Sounds good enough.
That's what I like.
I do like
Okay.
that.
I think that's pretty extreme, actually, from where we are today, but,
That's a recommendation, don't
It's a
change it anyway.
recommendation.
Okay.
I wonder how many parcels that would take out of the equation to support solar.
Well, it's not solar, that'll be for the wind.
This is for the wind.
Yeah,
This is for the wind.
yeah, right.
And then-
And the visual sort of impact of a wind turbine is far greater than the visual impact of a solar array, I think, you know, from an adjacent property. It's easy to screen, far easier to screen a solar array than it is a wind turbine. But if that is the wishes of the board, you can go ahead.
And I know, like, you know, meetings like this, we do, you know, we have a lot of the public show up, but I always, I mean, it is, the original wind farm that we had, when the ordinances got written in 2007 and got put into place, I still believe that we have probably one of the most successful wind energy systems or wind farms, whatever you wanna refer to it as, it's terminology updates in the state. I mean, as far as runs, it operates, there's no real complaints on it. We don't hear anything of it.
Yeah.
But we
It's out there.
represent the public.
It's out there doing its
Best
thing.
interest.
Right.
So that's the public.
Yeah.
So we have to, I take your proposal.
I like that, and then, what about Susan talked about the A2,
The A3.
or excuse me, A3.
Should you vote on that first?
Should we what?
Vote on that last one?
Well, no, I think we
Vote 'em
just,
all in.
put this all in our recommendation, so I would be in favor of changing, so I guess I'd make a motion, I recommend we go with what's written, but we change the setbacks to 1,500 foot from property line, half mile from dwelling. And then what Susan talked about,
Remove the A3 district.
remove the A3.
Okay.
That's my motion.
Anybody else want to add to the other changes? Besides those?
Second that.
Good.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We'll take a vote.
Chapman,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Leaders,
Yes.
Silkworth.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other business?
No other business for the commission tonight?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
So moved.